Everyone's talking about AI, but let's be honest, most organizations are still struggling to decide where to start. So today we're going to dive into what really matters, and that's data, people, and processes. So on this episode of the CG Hour, we're going to go beyond the buzz and talk about practical steps to accelerate AI. Let's start the countdown. Welcome to the CG Hour. My name is Fanny Dunagan, and I'm the host, where every episode we come to you featuring industry experts and leaders sharing about the latest hot topics around technology and business. And on this episode, we're going to talk about the going beyond the buzz and the hype of AI and how we can practically accelerate that journey and do it rationally and practically. So on this episode, we are joined by an amazing guest panelist. I also want to welcome all of you on the LinkedIn Live as well as YouTube Live. Be sure to introduce yourself in the comments of the feed. Let people know where you're tuning in from. Introduce yourself and what you do. And feel free to network with others in the comments of the feed so that you can build your network as well. So I'm going to start over here to introduce to you our guest panelists. Over here on our far left, we have Scott Stafford. He is the technology evangelist at Peaklogic. Scott, please share a little bit about yourself to our audience.
My name is Scott Stafford. I love AI, and what I'm really excited about is mixing AI and allowing it to augment our abilities. So one thing that really is passionate for me is human-centric AI. We have the technology today, and now at Peaklogic, we're dedicated to using the tools, right, to then allow us to take ourselves to the next level. So I'm really passionate about that. I've taken quite a few classes at Stanford around human-centric AI, and it's something that I want to bring to the world.
Welcome, Scott.
Thank you.
Yes. And then over here to my left, we have Phil Kolterman. He is the CIO at Brinks Home. Welcome, Phil.
Hi. Phil Kolterman. I'm going to steal Scott's line. I love AI too. I think that's
I love it.
We're all
good.
AI fans.
Yeah. At Brinks Home, we're very focused on perfecting the customer experience. We do a lot of AI enablement of our workforce for those purposes and managing our cost structure. Yeah. Prior to Brinks Home, I had a long career in telecom, and I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. Thank you. Welcome to the show. And over here on my right, we have Brian Wolfe. He is the SVP at CG Infinity. Welcome, Brian. Share a little bit about yourself.
Thank you. Excited to be here. Brian Wolfe, Senior Vice President at CG Infinity. I've been helping clients with data and analytics initiatives and now AI for the past 20 years in manufacturing and oil and gas. It's great to be here.
Awesome. So glad you're here, Brian. And then last but not least, we have Kirk Diepenbrock. He is the CIO at the American Board of OBGYN. Welcome, Kirk. Share a little bit about yourself.
Thank you. Yes, I'm the CEO at the American Board of OBGYN. We certify physicians on all things women's health. And we're trying to use AI to create the best experience, not just in certification, but in ongoing checks of domain knowledge. So a physician can use AI and just check where they're at through their entire career.
That's awesome. So as you can see, we have a very diverse and knowledgeable group here. And before we get into the questions for our panelists, we wanted to run by you a research video that we put together, just sharing some of the statistics and newsworthy things that have been across the news circuit and sharing some of those statistics with you. Let's roll that now. CG Hour presents Beyond the Buzz, practical steps to accelerate AI. AI is projected to generate $7 trillion in value through generative AI alone, and is expected to boost U.S. labor productivity by 0.5 to 0.9% annually through 2030. Most AI projects are still in the proof of concept stage. 58% of companies are using any new revenue to invest in AI. The average 3-year ROI for a business using Google Cloud Generative AI is 727%. Over 80% of AI projects fail. 30% of enterprise generative AI projects are expected to stall due to poor data quality, inadequate risk controls, escalating costs, or unclear business value. 67% of executives are uncomfortable using data from advanced analytics systems. 33% of executives said that their organizations will be developing data management capabilities in the next 12 months. On average, poor data quality can cost an organization $12.9 million annually. More than half of global businesses do not have an AI governance, risk, and compliance policy. The mind is built for levels of reasoning, flexibility, creativity, and abstract thinking that AI still hasn't replicated. Successful AI adoption demands a foundation of accessible data, transparent governance, appropriate tools, and a workforce equipped with AI-relevant skills. Is your organization building AI on a foundation strong enough to scale? Okay, as you can see, there's a whole variety of statistics right now swirling around AI, one of them being that 80% of AI projects fail right now. So there's still a lot of conversation that needs to be had and exploration to dive deeper into exactly the impacts and how we can use it. So I want to welcome some of the audience here. I see Amy tuning in from Nebraska. Awesome, Amy, welcome. Yashika from Toronto, so welcome to the feed. Please feel free to let us know any questions you have for our experts here throughout the show, and I'll bring them up and discuss it as well. Okay, so let's kind of talk about the very first important foundational thing, which is data, right? And I want to kind of go around here, and maybe I'll start with you, Kirk. As you've kind of started your AI projects in your organization, where did you start, and what kind of lessons did you learn, especially around data?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we approach this like you would a database or a BI project, and the more data you could put in there, the better. We quickly learned that was not the case. As you can imagine, across the domain of OB-GYN knowledge, it's a rather big domain, everything from oncology to delivering babies. And so when we gave it all that data and we had 5-6 years worth in there, we'd hit some hallucinations here and there. It would just make stuff up. As soon as we parse the data down to specific domains and solve specific problems, our results got a lot better.
Yeah, I love that you point that out, because you almost think logically that you just fill it with tons of information, but to kind of parse that down. Thank you. Scott, I want to ask you, I know at Peaklogic, you guys are doing a whole bunch of things, and what were some learning lessons as you kind of kicked off AI projects around data?
Yeah, for data, it was really interesting to realize that you can have really good data, but not necessarily do people understand it the same. So we have data sometimes in Jira and then in Salesforce and just different applications. So we got really excited to use AI, right, to actually make that data more understandable for different communities. So we actually used Claude to actually bring the data, right, and then translate it into a form that people in the customer service industry can understand. So data that maybe developers would put into Jira could then be a little bit more actionable for people in customer service. So kind of looking at data a little bit different, not just in the quantity, but do people really understand it, right? Everybody has a different semantic meaning for different words, and they have a different lens that they look through life. So you can use AI to help bridge that.
Yeah, thank you, Scott. For you, Brian, I mean, you obviously consult across a whole variety of organizations. What are some of those learning lessons as organizations prepare their data for AI?
I think at least the biggest learning for me is that, and I've been helping clients with data projects for 20 years now, and AI definitely raises the bar on data quality and data management practices. The data has to be available, it has to be accurate, but now it has to be tagged properly. And there's so many places where I think organizations, miss the mark. And if you look at researchers like Gartner, they'll say that over half of companies are not AI ready when it comes to having their data foundations in place. And I can attest to it at CG Infinity, where I run the data practice, that we're seeing a significant uptick in services or demand for master data management, data cleansing, and data governance. So those services. So companies are starting to, I think it's more palatable now to spend money on data management maybe than it was in the past. And so we're starting to see companies lean in and really work their data because they have to. Otherwise, these AI projects, you're going to get ahas and get stalled.
Yeah, and you pointed out a good point, because even in the stats, right, companies still aren't really kind of aggressive on having good data governance structures as well. Yeah.
That's right.
Phil, from your side, right, what are some of the learning lessons you're getting from your AI projects when it comes to data?
Yeah, our earliest projects utilizing generative AI were focused on the customer experience. We had a really early ChatGPT implementation on the help center as an example. We moved into helping agents with agent assist, those types of functions. And one of the things I've observed over the last couple of years is the reusability of data and the data integration is really high. It feels like we rebuild these tools constantly. The models are changing, the tools are getting better, and you've got to keep up and you've got to keep re-implementing. So that doesn't feel very durable, but the data and the foundation of cleaning up the data, improving the APIs and tagging things with metadata, those are things that have real durability that persist as you go forward, and the processes around that to be able to maintain those things.
Yeah, thank you. I also want to kind of look at where data was handled well, right? Kirk, when we were kind of prepping for this show, you mentioned a scenario there. So can you kind of share from your perspective an example when data was prepared well and some of the successes and benefits that came out of it?
Yeah, so we have a lot of the same challenges everybody else does when it comes to data management, but one of the cleanest places that we have data is around our certifying exams. So using that data with a human-centric approach made life for our SMEs a lot easier by being able to do things that don't come natural to people, like coming up with viable wrong answers to questions, or coming out with the answer key, right? Writing the question, the right answer is the easy part. It's a little bit more difficult to do the others, and that's where we saw our most success, because that data is pristine.
Yeah, and we typically just think of the right answers, but it takes a while to think of the wrong answer, doesn't it? Yeah, I love that. Scott, from your perspective at Peaklogic, any successes that you can share and the benefits that have been reaped?
Yeah, for us, we've had a lot of success in actually thinking about AI differently. So initially, we got really excited about Agentforce, and we reached out to different customers to see if they were ready. And a lot of people were hesitant. They still wanted to clean their data. They just weren't ready for that. So we said, well, AI is the new electricity. How else can we use this tool? So just kind of with that mindset, thinking AI first, and then think about different things that you're doing that you want to accomplish. So for us, we say we really want to make sure that our customers, right, are understanding, the status of their different implementations that we're working on. So just being able to inject it into all the different connectors that Peaklogic makes has been tremendous success. I mean, everybody really appreciated it, and it actually even helps our own team, to bridge the different departments, and it's kind of bringing everybody together. So it's what we want from AI, right? Yeah. Is just to bring people together and then elevate to a higher understanding.
Right. And giving the whole organization better visibility too.
It's incredible.
Right? Yeah, absolutely. Well, I want to move on to the topic of data security, right? Brian, from your perspective, What risks are you seeing in enterprises nowadays when it comes to kind of data security, and what are some best practices to protect that in this AI era?
Sure. I think at least from clients as well as even at CG Infinity, the number one concern, at least that I see or hear about most, is protection of intellectual property. And that's where your employees are uploading documents that contain sensitive information or just intellectual property information that through something like ChatGPT, and all of a sudden that information's out into the universe. And so I think if you go back about a year where this started becoming a problem, the immediate reaction from companies was just, well, we're just not going to give people access to that. And then that sort of defeats the purpose of having these tools and capabilities. And so, but I think clients have learned and are aggressively implementing private large language models that are contained within your infrastructure so that data never is exposed. And so companies like Microsoft Copilot or solutions like Microsoft Copilot facilitate that and allow that. And so our company has adopted that. And protecting and securing the environment is one. And then, there's data loss prevention tools that companies implement, kind of layered on top of that. And that will, scour your network for anyone, uploading and monitor. So you can still then allow people to upload documents into your internal tools, but still monitor that nothing sensitive is going where it's not supposed to. And then, probably the most important thing is just educating people. Yeah. If you think back when everybody's been trained on not clicking on phishing links,
Right.
And I think the same thing goes with AI. You put together the infrastructure to protect it, the data protection tools, but then you just explain to people, look, these are the documents that you can't upload into tools like that. And so, but protecting private information is probably the biggest thing that I see.
100%, yeah. And then Phil, I know you obviously deal with customer data, right? You're B2C. And so from your perspective, when it comes to data security, what kind of risks do you run into, and then what best practices have you kind of put in place?
Yeah, I think that the first risk we saw as we enabled some of these tools is you can no longer be passive about data management. You have to be, you can't have files sitting out there that are accessible but just not known, because your new tools will expose those files immediately and make those things known. So the technologies that you talked about with DLP implementation and really understanding what data you're making available to your tools is absolutely critical.
Right.
And it's really interesting. As I teach people about these tools, one of the things that I ask them to do is go ask Copilot somebody's salary, and they'll go do that, and it'll come back with salary. Well, how did it know that? Well, because it's in your email somewhere, and it knows everything that's in your email. Those types of things, like people don't think about how am I managing data and where does it live. So I think that's number one. I think two, these models put a premium when we talk about data or talk about security. I think the other big risk here is hallucination and the ability for it to make things up and try and be pleasing. And I think it puts a premium on automated testing and the ability to regression test the product that you're putting out there, so that, and in an automated manner. You have to be able to run statistically significant samples of test cases because it's non-deterministic, and it won't be the same answer twice. So you need to be able to judge those things and know that you're at whatever SLA you expect to be clean from a data generation perspective.
Right. There's that extra layer of security, right? Because it could cause a whole bunch of problems if it wasn't in place. Yeah. Yeah, we have, I want to acknowledge one of the questions we got from the audience, from Solomon, a CTO here. He says, regarding security, we initially separated the data plane and the control plane. AI appears to mix the two back together. Several famous examples of how users bypass the controls that were put in place. How do you see the controls being established? Anybody here want to tackle that? This difference, this data plane versus the control plane?
Nobody's going to jump in.
I mean, I'll just kind of, I think you're going to be seeing, right now you have AI, right, being used to penetrate systems. So whatever we do, we're going to have to use it as a tool to combat it. So that's a lot of what we were talking about at Dreamforce, right? It was just really incredible. But one thing that Mark Benioff pointed out is a lot of times people at home have better tools than they do in the office, right? And, you know, your ChatGPT just works, you're doing a lot of stuff, then you go into the office and you're like, oh, we're a little bit behind. So I think in the data security sector, I think we need to implement more tools. So there's quite a few companies that are using AI to kind of monitor the whole system, right? And then kind of keep you aware of, hey, this is what's happening in real time, and this is my suggestion. So that's my best stab at that question.
Yeah, thank you.
I don't know the answer to the test question, but I do know that I've seen a number of projects where we have screwed up our AI implementation by trying to impose rules or old paradigms on the implementation. And my instinct has become to try a bunch of things and test the heck out of it. You know, like that automated testing, regression testing, you need to move those controls to what is the right end product, and are you getting the right answer out of the end? I do think we'll evolve new paradigms and new standards, but in today's pace, I think that's what I've seen successful.
Yeah, I love that. So a key phrase, test the heck out of it, right?
And I think nowadays, you know, with AI being a non-deterministic system, it's really great for testing. So before you could run, you know, just a few tests, but here you can run millions of them, and it deviates it for you. So you'd be like, oh, it's constantly, each test could be a little bit different. Right. So we're using the power of what AI is, right, non-determinism, to actually, you know, keep it safe.
Yeah, multiple iterations now
Yeah.
we can go through. Yeah. Well, thank you for the questions. Continue to feed us those questions. In the meantime, we want to share with you a video that we have with Brian going a little deeper into this topic.
Governance supported by business is a really strong framework to accelerate AI adoption. I recently hosted an executive forum with executives from Fortune 500 companies as well as mid-sized companies, some that are just starting their AI journey and others who have been at it for multiple years and lots of different successes. And there was several key themes that came out of the workshop or session on how to accelerate AI, but it starts with having a solid AI foundation in place. The foundation includes, first, having accessibility to clean and reliable data. Next is a safe and secure IT infrastructure. And then third other key element is having critical skills such as data scientists, architects, software engineers to work on these solutions. With that, you get the baseline foundation where you can get started. To really accelerate, what I found was leading companies had a strong governance framework in place with strong business leadership that nurtured AI projects from ideas all the way to implementation. So starting with a portfolio of ideas to developing a business case, then proof of concepts, delivering an MVP, and most importantly, a proof of value. So once an MPV is completed, actually putting it to use and see that users are going to adopt it and get benefits before fully building out the solution. And then all along that, knowing that a lot of these projects will fail and having a culture and mindset that it's okay to fail. But that governance supported by business is a really strong framework to accelerate AI adoption.
So now that we kind of covered a few areas around data, let's move to processes, right? With AI nowadays, it's not just fixing processes, it's almost reimagining processes. So I want to ask our panelists here, kind of to share their best frameworks when it comes to selecting AI use cases in their organizations. Kirk, I want to start with you. What has been your experience, and how did you kind of select these AI use cases?
Yeah, so it's interesting coming over from corporate, where I was in fintech for most of my career, and then going into a nonprofit. You can't really use those ROI or hours saved kind of metrics, right, that we're used to. So we went in with the thought that let's do the things that touch the most hands, right? Let's try to bring value and a better process to the highest number of people we can, because most of our content creators are volunteers, right? Yeah. So we had to do a little bit different metric, but we're really going with just what can do the most good.
Got it, yeah. Phil, I know from your perspective, right, businesses need to look at costs, right, and ROI. So when you went about selecting possible use cases to implement AI, what framework did you use? What kind of logic did you look at?
First of all, I think that there are 3 domains where you can just kind of like look out there and see where others have been successful. And in the contact center space, computer programming, and content creation and management, those are the 3 areas that have seen the highest and best returns from AI. So there's some obvious places to go hunting for opportunities. But I think that there are some other things that come into play here that have not a lot to do with AI, but they just have to do with good process management. You want to look for processes that you don't want to try and impose a technology of any kind on a process that hasn't been well thought through and understood. And that has to come first. It doesn't matter if you're going to use an AI tool or some other process improvement technology. Those building blocks have to be in place for you to be successful with that implementation ultimately. And I don't find that AI is any different. And then I think the third thing that I've seen with AI in particular is it's really strong at eliminating work that used to require thought. And what that often does, or what I've seen in process management, is what that often does is it means that you should be thinking about shifting processes that may touch multiple people or multiple organizations into one chair, where it becomes more of an exception base, and I'm approving this thing that AI did for me, and it pulled together this information, and then ultimately maybe I eliminate it entirely if I'm comfortable that it's been successful.
Right. Now, Phil, I know you kind of, you guys put in AI in a variety of places, and one of them being your contact center. Can you talk a little bit about that and that implementation? Yeah,
I mean, we've been on quite a journey in the contact center space. We started with a company called Cresta AI about 3 years ago. We initially provided a AI assistant for the agent, where it's transcribing the call and then providing hints and tips and techniques. That's moved into automating QA, and ultimately we've moved into complete virtualization of that call. So we have a virtual agent that answers all of our calls and attempts to assist the customer, starting incidentally with what traditionally would have been thought of as not the low-hanging fruit. We started with the troubleshooting side of the contact center space for us, because AI is very good at knowledge type use cases. And so whereas building APIs and connectors and giving it the ability to take a bill pay, which is where you typically think of self-service in the contact center space, that takes a little more work from a technology standpoint. Providing knowledge and letting it answer questions about how do I reset my camera, or those types of things were natural use cases for AI. So
thank you for sharing that. And for our audience, please put in the comments how you have been using AI in a variety of use cases at your organizations, so that we can all learn as well. Scott, from your perspective, any kind of frameworks that you recommend when it comes to looking at processes and good use cases for AI?
At Peaklogic, we realized that a lot of companies were just putting an AI overlay on processes that are been there for a long time. And we have a new tool. And when you get a new tool, there's a whole new way that you can use it. And one thing that we had a big discussion about, what happened when we got electricity. So initially, The factories, right, just were laid out in a certain way for steam, and they just brought in motors. And they found that, hey, it was, they were able to fire some workers or lay off people, but they didn't necessarily get a return on investment. Nothing new had occurred, right? They just simply replaced one thing with the other. But a few years later, when they had to start really building new factories, they started from scratch. And they say, hey, with this new tool, we can actually put all the equipment a lot closer, making the whole process more efficient. And then they got a lot of gains with productivity. So for Peaklogic, we kind of took that mindset and decided to do a listening tour. We wanted to get out of our space and simply deciding, hey, this is what we think we can do. And we wanted to hear, what do people want, right? What are they looking for? And one question that we always said is, what do you want the technology to do? And then when do you want us to step in? When are you looking for that human interaction? And it was really interesting. They kind of said, yeah, I love the fact that the technology can bring the accurate information. It can translate one system to the other, but we really value, right, talking to you guys personally. So that was kind of like helpful for us to really understand that it's not just adding AI to existing processes, it's thinking about things differently and then just listening to your customer, right? You got to find a need and fill it, not create a need and solve it.
Yeah, and it's not just customers external, but your internal different departments. And
Yeah.
I love that idea, the listening tour. Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about this kind of reimagination of processes, because now AI has so many extra capabilities, right? Brian, from your perspective, what have been some of the case studies that you've kind of worked on to reimagine processes?
I thought about this a little bit different than just reimagining, but where have clients made significant business impact from AI?
Yeah.
Not necessarily from Gen AI, but some of the more mature capabilities like machine learning,
Yes.
which does a really good job in optimization where you have thousands of different scenarios and have to be able to evaluate what is my best course of action or forecasting. The one example that comes to mind was with an oil and gas client that was required to deliver water out to fracking sites and then come and remove it. And the demand for those trucks is very difficult to forecast. And so you either have too many trucks and they're waiting around, and it was very inefficient. And they deployed their data science team to really look at real-time information that would give them the best indication of how much water was needed, on the same side during the disposal, how many trucks were going to be needed. So they used advanced algorithms to do that, and then used additional applications to optimize the routes. And they had amazing success in terms of reducing the amount of trucks that they needed in their fleet, the amount of fuel that was consumed because of more efficient routes, as well as labor. So it was like a 30% reduction in cost. And so
Wow.
real world savings, and it just I think a great application of AI, and really it was just a good partnership with the business and their data science team to be able to deliver those results. So it was cool.
Wow. Real, tangible cost savings. Yeah, love that. Scott, when we were talking about preparing for this show, you had a really unique example of where AI has led to true reimagination. Can you talk a bit about that?
Sure. I think a lot of times when we think about AI, right, we're trying to figure out like the existing things that we can do. And for me, I've been watching Salesforce. They initially started out with Agentforce 1.0, 2.0, and they've been looking for, what are we going to do with this? Is it simply just going to replace workers, or is it actually going to elevate us? It actually potentially lead to new innovation, which will bring prosperity all around. So and when they brought in Agentforce, they found out, hey, they had incredible amounts of productivity gain, right? They answered everything very accurately. But sometimes when you looked at the customer satisfaction, you said, it's a little bit, it might not have gone up like you would have expected. And I think it's really time for us to look back and try and figure out, what do humans really need, right? What are we looking for, right? And ultimately, everything that we produce or make is to bring about the best human experience. So that's really the approach we've taken at Peaklogic. And then it was a really great breath of fresh air to see that's exactly what you heard from Mark Benioff. He says, hey, we have the tools now, but we're going to use those to augment you, and we're going to do things that we've never imagined possible, right? Anybody that owns a business probably said, hey, I have infinite number of ideas of what we could do, right, if we had the possibilities to do it, and now we do.
Such an interesting point, because in the pursuit of all this optimization, we also can't forget about customer experience, right? Especially that B2C space. And so it's interesting that you said it, customer experience scores kind of dropped a little bit with too much AI usage. Yeah. Well, Phil, from your perspective, right, contact centers, any other reimagination scenarios that have kind of put in at your organization?
I mean, I feel like in many ways we're just beginning with our virtual agent project to really reimagine the customer experience through A/B testing, and that's one of the wonderful things. If you take a really human-centric process and you introduce generative AI, it becomes a lot easier to test scenarios like you would have on your website, right? You can take, that's really hard to do with a group of people, to say 5% of you do this and 5% of you do this. That it just really doesn't work, right? But you can do that easily with generative AI and really begin to tune in and hone the customer experience at a really small level. And it could be a macro change where ultimately you deploy it across all customers, and it could be that you come up with a solution that only applies to one customer, and that's the optimum solution for that one customer, or there's sort of customization in the process. So more to come, but I'm excited about the prospects there.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's an exciting time for sure. I also want to be aware that a lot of organizations, maybe not at the enterprise level, but sometimes at the enterprise level, but also at the mid-size level. Kirk, this is a question for you. There's this juggling of, we need to find a quick win so that we can justify the costs and the ROI versus a bigger project that needs more time, but the ROI will take a while. Right? How do you juggle that?
Yeah, I think some of that has to do not only with where we are with AI, but the maturity of the organization. You know, as an example, I'm going to go back to the statistic you flashed up before, that 80% of AI projects are failing. And if you go back, you look at internet projects or web projects in the late 90s, it was in that same space, right? And one of my mentors took me alongside as a young software developer, and he goes, you know, quit swinging for the fence. 4 base hits count the same number of points as a home run. So that's really where, both in software and AI, that I've kind of adopted you know, let's take it one step at a time. Let's pick projects that help us build our toolkit so that we're equipped and we have the know-how and the muscle to take on those bigger projects. So there's no doubt that, you know, when you're trying to justify your projects, you have to come with that blend. But I think, you know, start small, fail small, and build up to the bigger projects, I think, is key.
Yeah, thank you. Brian, from your perspective, because you kind of see small, medium, and large enterprises, how do you juggle that quick win versus longer term investments?
You know, as companies sort of mature out of the, you know, the early stage wins and kind of build the muscle to where they've found success and they're delivering projects, then now you're getting lots of demand on scarce resources. And so governance becomes really important. Which projects do get worked on? And so working with one client that has pretty sophisticated, mature, you know, some of it's machine learning, some Gen AI, but they have lots of projects going on. And there's a big focus on business value, making sure that the most impactful projects are the ones that get funded. But then there's also a culture of failing fast. And so, you know, if the business isn't ready, then, you know, to take on a project, they can't put together a business case that it doesn't get worked on. If you go through a proof of concept and it's not working, you know, put that one to the end, start a new one, and then, you know, then there's MPV. You build the minimum viable product and get it into users' hands. If the users aren't going to use it and adopt it, you know, you stop development on it. But so it's all that governance, allowing projects, kind of pushing them to the brink of failure quickly, so that when you do land something that's actually producing real results, that now you pile on and give it all of the resources it needs to be fully developed and deployed.
You said an operative word, Brian, I think quickly,
Yeah.
right? Because the more I hear, the more I talk to people, it's your point about just multiple iterations and just pivot quickly
Yeah.
and keep going, because you almost can't sit back and just wait for things to settle out, right?
And there's a big, we haven't really hit on it, there's a big change management and adoption
Yeah.
component. You can have lots of brilliant ideas.
Yeah.
If the organization's not prepared to take action on it, it's not going to produce results. And so it's kind of getting to the point where, hey, is this something that's going to create value with the users? And let's, if you're not ready to drive that level of change and adoption, let's not work on it.
Right, right. Phil, from your side at the enterprise level, how do you juggle proving that there are some quick wins and smaller kind of projects, and then balancing that with longer term projects that need more resources and then a longer term kind of ROI?
Yeah, for these AI-based implementations, and I really question that statistic, and there's lots of them out there like that. If you are, I sort of put projects in kind of like, or in this AI space in sort of two buckets. You've got tools projects where you're going to deploy a tool. Maybe it's a new chatbot, or maybe it's a new Copilot. You might be deploying Copilot in your organization. And if you think that those tools projects are going to create this obvious reduction in cost or obvious improvement in experience, you probably aren't thinking about it correctly. I think those go back to your example about the early web projects, or like the deployment of computers on the desktop. Like everyone thought this was going to immediately create all this additional productivity, and the reality is it has completely changed our lives. It just didn't immediately change our lives.
Right.
And I think that's how those tool projects kind of go. Is I could not live without Copilot right now. It has changed how I do my work, but there's still a CIO at Brinks Home, right? Like we didn't harvest that benefit yet. On the other hand, I do think that there are what I sort of think of as like level 2 projects where you're reinventing a big workflow or a system. I look at our contact centers that way. They've really remodeled themselves around the AI tool sets. And in those cases, you can have absolutely transformational impacts on the customer experience and the cost structure. But big results like that don't happen quickly, and they take a lot of effort, and they take a lot of change management, to your point. Everyone's got to be on board, and you've got to do a good job managing through that.
Yeah, 100%. And we'll definitely touch on that next. But I think that point you made about having different tiers almost, right? Tools, and then like bigger process kind of changes for other organizations to consider, absolutely. And let us know in the comments what you do to balance looking at quick wins versus longer term investments when it comes to AI. Would love to hear your thoughts and insights as well. In the meantime, I want to play for you another video with our friend here, Brian, diving a little deeper into the data side of things.
Good data is critical for AI success. If your data is inconsistent, inaccessible, and untrustworthy, your AI solutions are going to deliver poor business outcomes. Data quality becomes a big dependency along your AI success journey. Unfortunately, more than half of companies have significant gaps when it comes to data quality, data reliability, and data trustworthiness. That means before AI can deliver real business value, organizations must address their AI quality and trustworthiness. Cultivating good data requires cleaning and standardizing to eliminate errors and inconsistencies, establishing a single source of truth around master data, then implementing governance, measurements, and then maintenance to keep data clean across the organization. Once your data foundation is in place, your odds of AI success and delivering value improve dramatically.
So as we dive deeper and deeper into this topic, I do want to call out a great comment and question we had from our YouTube channel here. and that is around, there's so much going on around AI, it can start to feel overwhelming almost, like we're not caught up, right? So then there might be a perception, and this user asks, is it too late to start exploring AI projects and diving into that world? What do you think, Scott?
I think you hear a lot of people kind of getting scared. I mean, you hear it on all of them. AI's here, it's going to take our jobs. But we've been here before, right? You had the Luddite movement and everybody's like, hey, anti-technology. But technology is going to be amazing, right? And there will be a lot of transition. But if you dive in right now, there is incredible opportunity. We are very lucky to be at this period of time in our world. We are going to be elevating society to levels that have never been seen before. So I want to encourage everybody, don't take that mindset. Just get in there and start playing with the toys, right? We talked a little bit earlier about, hey, which projects to do. I a lot of times think is the one that you can do really quickly and then build success with your team. Get everybody pumped up about where we are in history, right? We are in interesting times. There is incredible opportunity. So if you don't know anything about AI, you still can jump in. You're just at 1% of what's going to be possible.
Love that. Great encouragement, Scott. From your side, Phil, it's so hard. It's so easy to feel overwhelmed. So what would you say to someone that feels like they're already behind the 8 ball?
I mean, I think when you feel like you're behind in a technology role, all you can do is run it change as fast as possible. Wherever you see change, that's where you should be headed. And you know, you guys put up that statistic about $7 billion in revenue, or $7 trillion in revenue by 2030. The last statistics I saw, you know, OpenAI has like tens of billions of dollars of revenue this year. So the growth trajectory, this is a great time to hop in terms of where we are in the technology cycle. And I personally agree with your assessment that what I see happening here is the world is going to become a much more productive place, and everyone is going to be 3x, 4x, whatever they're doing today. But I think the expectations will also raise for for productivity.
Yep.
So I don't know that we need a lot less employees to do computer programming or do content creation. We're just going to create a lot more computer programs and a lot more content. And that's the opportunity. It's been said, I think there's a Davos quote, you know, you're not going to be replaced by AI, but you might be replaced by someone using AI. And I think that's very true.
Yep.
I love your quote just now, Phil. Run at change, right? Just kind of lean into all that discomfort and then keep going. Right? So thank you for that. So I want to get into this third section of our show here, where we obviously need to talk about people, right? People are still at the core of it. Human-led AI, Scott mentioned, right? And so let's talk about the human advantage still that we have and how we can incorporate that with AI. Brian, I'll start with you. Obviously, some people fear AI. They think it'll replace their jobs, all that, right? What should companies be instilling around mindset and culture to kind of ease those kind of fears?
Sure. I think what I've liked or I've noticed just reading the papers or talking to clients is many CEOs and leaders are out there being very transparent in terms of where they see their companies going. And it's not always crystal clear, but they can see change. And that they're embracing the organization to take on that change. And they realize, just as Phil said, it's the people that are using AI are the future. And so committing to the upskilling. And it's also, they recognize it's going to be a lot of change. It's going to be difficult. And what the terms that I like being used is, it's sort of the part of the new culture is being adaptable and resilient. And it's going to be difficult. It's going to be painful at times because you're not certain, or you're doing things you're uncomfortable with or you haven't done before. But that's kind of what's needed to morph into the new direction, the new economy that's going to happen. And so I think being transparent, communicating, upskilling the employees, but then there's going to be new roles for people to help people through the journey, and that's the resilience and adaptability that's going to be needed.
Right. Awesome. Scott, from your perspective, you also
That was really well said. I mean, I think it comes down to people, process, and technology. We've all heard it, right? But it's always about people first. And what we're going to see is extraordinary opportunity for us as humans to elevate to the next level. So everybody is going to be transitioning. We're going to be upskilling. We're going to be learning new things. And the way I kind of think about it is, let's think about the grocery store, right? Back in the day, you used to always go right to the checkout stand. There was no technology there, right? But now you have a choice. Do I go to the self-checkout or do I go to the person? So you had the opportunity. If the person that's checking you out is extra inspirational, really brings a great experience, you choose that one. So we as humans, right, we're kind of in a way like we need to differentiate ourselves from the technology that we build. So there's just a lot of opportunity to do that, right? Make yourself more human and you're going to become more valuable.
Well, Scott, you have a fan in the comments here, Johannes. He says, Scott always says, AI for humans by humans. So
That's true.
Great quote. Thank you for sharing that. Phil, at the enterprise level, what kind of cultural mindset shifts have you had to instill to move this workforce, especially around the contact center as well?
Yeah, there's a couple of things that come to mind. First of all, I think that these new technologies and the rapid pace of change puts even more emphasis on partnerships between technology teams and business teams. And I have some great business teams. Shout out to my partners at Brinks Home, and we do great things together. And I think that together is really important in this new paradigm. I think also, we talked about communication, and I won't belabor that point, but I think that beyond communication, you also need to really walk the walk in terms of giving people the opportunities you talked about. Finding new roles for people, making them part of the implementation, making them part of the management. One of the things we found is that you have to manage the AI just like, in many cases, just like you manage people, but it takes different skills. And upskilling people, giving them opportunities to be part of these new experiences is absolutely critical. And then that drives some validity to your messaging and your communication.
Yeah. And if I can add as well, I know from my perspective, there is almost an overwhelm sometimes because there's 100 things that I can learn and read up on. And I almost feel like sometimes organizations can also maybe add empathy for the workforce and have patience for the workforce to upskill, right? Because it will take some time.
For sure.
And then there will be frustration. So adding that element of empathy as well, I think, would be great to enhance everything that everyone has said. Well, we talked about upskilling and training, right? I want to kind of go around the table here. And what kind of upskilling or training programs have you put in your organizations? I'll start with you, Kirk, to help your workforce base.
Great question. It's difficult to find, right, to be honest. But we did start out with some external trainers coming in and kind of setting a baseline. Other things we've done is, as we've rolled out pieces of AI, we've kind of had this challenge, like, we're giving you this tool, can you tell us how you used it? Not to play big brother and double check that they're using it, but let's hear some of the innovative things that you did. And so we share those back to the base, and then there's a lot of individual and then peer training.
Yeah, I like that. It's training, but then giving them room for experimentation too, right? Brian, upskilling programs and suggestions?
At least some of my observation is that the capabilities outpace the training, and so often, employees, particularly technology-centric folks, they've got their hands on all the latest and greatest, and so I think it's creating a culture where you allow people to use the various tools that are out there and available and share with each other, like, oh my gosh, have you seen this?
Yeah.
And I have lunch with clients all the time, and they'll tell me about the latest and greatest agentic AI tool or Gen AI tool, and I'll ask my team, hey, go look at this, and they're like, oh my gosh, I created this website in 5 minutes. And so anyway, I think you've got to have the commitment, to training and provide the availability of tools, but at the same time, I think, right now that the people are learning faster than the training can come. And I think creating a culture where people are sharing and learning is one way to go.
I love that. Yeah, because we we can't do it on our own anymore, right? We need to leverage everyone on the team to learn and share. Great point. Phil, from your perspective?
Yeah, I'll use a couple of examples. In our contact center space, our training organization has absolutely transformed themselves around managing the AI tools, and they're the team that configures all the generative knowledge. They're the team that grooms the knowledge in the database to make sure the vector database is correct and accurate. And then that transfers from new employees coming in, they're trained on those tools, and the same team created the tools. And then as we roll things out to the new agents, one of the great things about generative AI is you can provide those hints and tips in real time, and they're able to use those tools to put that in front of people. So it's absolutely transformed how we train and skill people in those areas. In the IT space, we really tried to put some weight behind this by providing management focus. So we've got a manager whose full-time job it is to enable the workforce with these tools. And I think that's one key. And then you hit on this. Technology people are great at discovering new tools and opportunities. And I think we had to make budget room to be able to buy some of those tools and enable those processes. So when people come to you and they say, I can be faster, I can do better, I can get a return if we had this tool, you have to be able to pivot, make those evaluations, that's also a problem, and then make those purchases to add that effectiveness.
Such a great point there, like having that budget for extra experimentation and then iterations and testing of new tools, right? Let us know in the comments below how you have put in maybe different upskilling programs at your organizations. We would love to hear that. And so Scott, from your perspective, any successful upskilling programs or suggestions you have?
Yeah, at Peaklogic, we really wanted everybody to get excited about AI, right? There's a lot of change going, so we encouraged people to get the certifications by Salesforce. But then we also said that, hey, we want to hear what you would. Just go ahead and write back to something that you're interested in, whether it's using Canva and AI or just anything out there, and we would love to support that as well. It might not necessarily be initially something that our company's looking for, but it's an opportunity for you to get excited, which excites the whole team, but also for us to explore new angles. So that really kind of upped the ante for people. They're like, okay, I'll get the certification, and then they're open, right? They're excited about this space, and it really was a big success.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for all these great suggestions. And be sure for all of you in the audience to connect with our experts here. And all their information are in the details of the live show. As you can tell, there's a lot more work to be done. It is not too late. Run towards the change, as Phil said. I love that line. That's going to stick with me. And lots more exciting things to happen on this AI journey. But for the focus of today, remembering that data, process, and people, not just the technology, but those three other things are so crucial to this journey to AI. So thank you, Scott, Phil, Brian, and Kirk, for all your insights. Thank you to you all in the audience. Be sure to stay tuned for our episode in 2 months, in December. We're going to have one final show to wrap up the year, so stay tuned for that. And as always, remember, shout out to our CG Infinity presenters and their slogan, People First, Driven to Transform. Such a great tagline, and they live by it and walk the talk as well. So we want to wrap up with this video from the presenters of the show, CG Infinity. Let's roll that.
If you build a company, it's kind of built in your own image, and this company's built in BOPE's high integrity image.
You tell us problem in English, we solve it.
Yeah.
That's what the company, from hardware, software, all that stuff, that continued till about 10 years ago. Last 8, 10 years, now our level of consulting is They hire us to help them find what their problem.
The way your leader behaves, the entire company evolves in that way, right? And BOPI has always been about delivering value for the customer, being 100% transparent with true integrity. And you would see that across the board.
Oh, he's the heart of CG Infinity. I mean, it's his idea. He's built it. He knew when to bring the right people in at the right time.
I used to think myself very, very good at math. And one day during a discussion, Bopi asked me, what's your favorite subject? And I said math. That was a trap, by the way.
And I saw my mother's, the only guy who was making it was the education-wise, is the precedent was set, right?
Yeah.
Not the first guy. So then that answers your question.
That's so interesting. You told me before, but without the story, that education is the only thing nobody can take away from you.
That's what his words were.
Yeah.
And I never forget.
As someone who doesn't know Bopi, I would say best of luck to them.
Thank you, Bopi, for starting this family outside the family. And a lot of us are here in the States because of this organization, because of you.
There are many lessons that I have learned from Bopi over the period of time. It can be anything. It can be maths, science, history, a lot.
He's absolutely brilliant, but I actually don't know anyone else that has a heart like Bopi Doll. He has a heart of gold, and he just wants to teach people.
We were in the literal basement of North Dallas Bank building on Preston and 635. So that's where I met. And how he was like, well, he was just like the same energetic person that I see them today. He was roaming around the hallways of that basement and just taking care of everything needed.
What I'm going to miss the most is I was surrounded with Mike. I could find the smartest people. I don't have to go anywhere.
Yeah.
And it's a family here, right?
Yeah.
I want to surround myself with smarter. That's what I'm going to miss.